Does science need God?
Interested in more stories about the Bible, saints, European history, and more? See thousands of videos from professors at renowned Catholic universities. Subscribe now at CatholicStream.com.
This is going to be a series of talks about big questions. Notice we're not promising you any big answers. I'm not interested in the answers, I'm interested in the questions. Now, I'm used to things that are big. I'm an astronomer. Big planets, big galaxies, big distances between places. But that's not the kind of big I'm talking about here. What do I mean by a big question? I remember a conversation I had once with a friend of mine who teaches philosophy at the University of Dallas. And he says, there are two kinds of questions. You can ask yourself, do I have enough money in my pocket to buy a candy bar? Once you know the answer, the question isn't interesting anymore. But there are other questions that even when you answer for now, you can come back and ask again tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Every time you go to the candy store, which candy bar do I want to get? Or maybe even more deeply, what is it about chocolate that is so attractive? Where do I find God in chocolate? Those are the kinds of big questions that you might ponder at 3 in the morning. What I want to give you here are new ways of thinking about those questions, new ways of asking those questions, so that when you're lying awake at 3 in the morning, you've got new things to think about. And if my answers put you to sleep, well, maybe that's what you actually need at 3 in the morning. Our first question is designed to be provocative. Does science need God? Okay, I'm a Jesuit and I'm an astronomer. You probably have no surprise that I can live a life of science and a life of religion because I do it all the time. But is it necessary for me to have religion to do God? One answer you may think I'm going to go with, but which I really don't want to, is the idea that maybe you need God in order to do science in a moral way, to make moral choices about the science you do. I'm not saying that. You don't need God to stop you from doing terrible things like making atomic bombs or cloning Justin Bieber. Morality is essential to doing science, yeah. Science is not a big book of facts. Science is a conversation among a community of people who are talking about those facts. And like all human communities, you have to have some ways of interacting with each other so you can trust each other. You can't be telling each other lies. When I read your data, I have to believe that that's your best interpretation of what you saw in the lab. And the system of science depends on attributing fairly who did what work, so that when I see a piece of work, I know how much to trust it or how to interpret it based on who did it, where did it come from, what were they worried about at the time. And so that if somebody does a good piece of work, we can give them the resources to do some more work in the future. Fine. And like any community, science is a community that works better if people don't lie, don't cheat, don't commit adultery. Unfortunately, I have known scientists who have violated those and all the other commandments. The interesting thing is, it doesn't invalidate the data they take. It's kind of like what they say about priests. The validity of the sacrament is not dependent on the worthiness of the person doing it. Anyway, my point is, the contention I'm having here is that's not why science needs God. There are plenty of atheists who live holy lives. I'm going to say instead that science requires God for reasons that hold true even if you don't think you believe in God. Now watch me. Science, it's a logical system. It's a system of reason. Reason has to start with assumptions. Every logical system starts with assumptions. Axioms, we call them in mathematics. And there are at least 3 axioms of science that you have to believe before you can do science. And I maintain they're religious axioms because not every religion believes in these things. First of all, you have to believe in reality. You can't say that, the universe is just a dream. Secondly, if you're going to go looking for the laws of physics, if you're going to go looking for the rules that describe how the universe works, you have to assume ahead of time that there are laws there to be found. And third, and sometimes most difficult, you have to believe that it's worth doing in and of itself, not just so you can clone Justin Bieber. All three of these axioms are religious in the sense that you can see religions that don't hold to them. For instance, consider the assumption of realism. There is a famous story of the Chinese Taoist Zhuangzi. The story goes, one day Zhuangzi dreamt he was a butterfly, flitting and fluttering about, happy with himself, doing as he pleased. He didn't know he was Zhuangzi. Suddenly, he woke up, and there he was, solidly and unmistakably Zhuangzi. But he didn't know. Was he Zhuangzi, who had dreamt he was a butterfly? Or was he a butterfly dreaming he was Zhuangzi? And of course, he's got a point. Maybe everything is illusion. The idea of the existence of a physical reality is something that we have to assume, because we know darn well we are interpreting the physical reality through our senses, and our senses can be fooled. But you have to make the assumption that even given the limitations of our senses, there is something real there to be studied. Even if you're a crazy quantum physicist and you've got, multiverses in your head, you still have to believe that the macroscopic needles and dials in your laboratory are really telling you repeatable facts that you can put into your theories. If you don't believe that, you're not studying physics. You're studying metaphysics, but you're not doing science. Second, you have to believe that the physical universe follows logical, repeatable laws. And not every religion believes that. Think of the ancient Romans. Romans were great at engineering. The Romans built aqueducts you can still see when you go take the train to Rome every day. But engineering is not the same as science. They didn't ask the big questions of why things occur in nature, because they already had the answers. Things occur in nature because the gods of nature cause them to occur. Listen to this from the Prometheus Bound, the play by the Greek poet Aeschylus. He's setting the scene. The earth-born dweller of the Cilician caves, impetuous Typhon, withstood all the gods, hissing out terror with horrid jaws, while from his eyes lightened a hideous glare, as though he would storm by force the sovereignty of Zeus. But the unsleeping bolt of Zeus came upon him. Okay, so there's Zeus with the lightning bolts, and Typhon the monster who lives in the caves under the mountains of Cilicia. Where's Cilicia? It's a kingdom in Turkey, and it's full of mountains, and it's full of volcanoes. Think volcanoes, and listen again to that description. The monster hissing out terror with horrid jaws, while from his eyes lightened a hideous glare, as though he would storm the sovereignty of Zeus. Fire and smoke, and the bright lava rising up into the sky, challenging the heavens where Zeus lived. And, as anyone who's actually worked around volcanoes can tell you, what happens when a volcano goes off? The air is full of dust, it becomes a conductor, you get bolts of lightning. Now, to us, lightning bolts follow Maxwell's equations, Ampere's law. It's a flow of electricity that's, heightened by the fact of all the dust in the air, so it can jump from dust to dust to dust. To the ancients, this was a battle between the monster under the mountain and the god in the sky. If you think volcanoes erupt because there's a monster under the mountains, if you think that lightning strikes the mountain because Zeus throws the bolt, you've already explained everything there is to explain about this natural phenomenon. And therefore, you're not going to look any further. You've already got your answer. But if you deny the existence of the nature gods, then you've got to come up with another answer. Then you actually have the playing field clear so that you can come up with another answer. One religion allows for science, the other denies it. Take your pick.
Welcome to this course on the history of the Catholic Church.
Unlock the wisdom
I want to look at Genesis 1.
of Catholic educators.
As we put the text into practice, it reveals even more.
The first question is, what is the Bible?
And it is in the Roman Empire in which Christianity is born.
So we talk about miracles. What is a miracle?
The Dead Sea Scrolls are debated.
Why do the cardinals pick the Pope?
Educate your mind, elevate your spirit. Subscribe now at CatholicStream.com.